There comes a point in opposition politics when a party stops thinking about the discipline of governing and starts performing politics as wish fulfillment. And that, I think, is where Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives now stand. Like the Lib Dems before the tuition fees debacle, the Tories now realise they can promise almost anything because nobody's looking. Nobody believes that they will have a chance in hell of implementing it. And this week's Conservative conference in Manchester shows the syndrome in its purest form. The centrepiece was a £9 billion pledge to abolish stamp duty on all primary homes. Economists across the spectrum loathe stamp duty. It gums up the housing market, it discourages downsizing, and it acts as a tax on mobility. So the idea sounds attractive, but it comes packaged with a £47 billion of still vague welfare and civil service cuts that supposedly pay for it. No independent watchdog has signed those numbers off, and even friendly think tanks admit that delivering such savings would be politically and administratively brutal. Badenoch's platform was a blizzard of similar offers. Scrap the Climate Change Act and carbon levies to cut bills. Leave the European Convention on Human Rights and deport 150,000 illegal migrants a year. Ban doctors' strikes to bring down NHS waiting lists. Reverse Labour's VAT on private schools and inheritance tax on farm estates. Slash rip-off university courses and double apprenticeship funding. It's an impressive sounding catalogue designed to say this is what we stand for: borders, tax cuts and a smaller state. But the risk is obvious. These are promises liberated from the expectation of power. They are statements for morale in a party languishing in third place, not serious governing blueprints. And the atmosphere in Manchester made the point for us. Half-empty halls, a muted business presence, donors quietly absent, activists fewer in number and older in age, senior figures openly discussing whether Badenoch will survive beyond next May's local or devolved elections. Well, I hope she won't even get to that point. The party knows it may be out of power for a decade, and by this display, I think it might be out of power forever. Yet Badenoch presents her programme with breezy confidence. She quotes George Bernard Shaw's warning not to wrestle pigs, a line aimed at Nigel Farage, no doubt, but really it applies to her own strategy. Avoid confrontation, project competence, hope the tide turns. It is, however, a long way from persuading voters who still remember Liz Truss's fiscal implosion and 14 years of increasingly lacklustre Conservative rule. But there's an irony here. And it's stamp duty abolition is, in isolation, a sensible structural reform. Paul Johnson of the Institute for Fiscal Studies calls it one of Britain's most damaging taxes, but good policy is not enough if the public believe the funding case is fantasy. And the Lib Dems discovered this painfully with tuition fees. Governing means numbers must add up, and Badenoch's golden rule, that half of all cuts to the deficit, half to the tax cuts, sounds prudent but without credible costings. It reads like the sort of slogan that Mr Farage would concoct. Opposition parties can use this freedom to reimagine themselves, but they can also trap themselves by promising so much to so many: cheaper energy, lower taxes, stricter borders, a re-engineering welfare state. Badenoch risks creating a menu that no chancellor could ever serve. If against the odds she came to power, these pledges would collapse just as Nick Clegg's did in 2010, eroding trust further. For now, the offers work as some sort of mood music. They give demoralised activists something to cheer and donors a reason to stay moderately engaged. They try to recast the Tories as both Thatcherite reformers and culture warriors, a party of low taxes and hard borders after the chaos of Truss and Sunak. But the wider electorate is watching with scepticism. Voters want competence, not magic money trees. They remember austerity, Brexit turmoil and the mortgage crisis. They are unconvinced that the same party can now conjure up a tax-cutting, house-building renaissance funded by painless savings. So Badenoch ends the conference as she began it: energetic, untested, inventive, implausible. She's embraced the freedom to offer whatever she wants because the moment At the moment, there's no price to pay. But if her luck changed and power returned, the reckoning would be brutal. For a party that once prided itself on being the grown-up in the room, this is dangerously adolescent.